落ちこぼれや麻薬使用者による魂の解放、フラワーチルドレン。彼らはアメリカ社会への失望と軽蔑を歌い、自らをヒッピーと呼びます。求めたのは平和、愛、そして性の解放、さらに心の平穏と調和でした。そのために麻薬が必要だったのです。後に運動が下火になると、彼らの多くが新たな魂の探求を始めますが、それは自由と自分自身を失う結果となります。彼らが選んだ指導者が結局は自分の私的財産を築くためや死と破壊に傾倒していくものだったと気づいた時にはすでに手遅れだったのです。ヒッピーとカルト集団、今回の20世紀です。
I'm Mike Wallace. According to Webster's, a hippie is usually a young person who adopts unconventional beliefs or practices. Hippies were part of the 60s protest movement, a youth movement that deplored just about everything their parents stood for. But the hippies took their protest one step further. Because they thought society could not be reformed, they decided to abandon it, to drop out as they called it, and try to form a new society based on peace and love. What seemed to ignite the hippie movement of the 60s was the explosion of the Beatles on the music scene. With their long hair and unconventional dress, their aggressively countercultural roots in Liverpool, with lyrics that seemed to speak to the heart of the alienation many young people were feeling, the Beatles lit a match to what eventually would turn into a cultural firestorm. It began on the west coast of the United States.
These people are hippies. They are occupying a piece of ground in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, which has come to be called Hippie Hill. They represent a new form of social rebellion. They dress in bizarre and colorful ways. They wear their hair long. Their very name suggests that they are hip, on to something good. They all declare themselves rebels against our society, but they want to withdraw from it instead of trying to change it. They like music. The word love is used by them a lot.
Well, I view it as a large experiment on the part of a great many young people. And it's an enormous denunciation of what part of American society stands for. Because these are young people who have access to all the opportunities that this nation has to offer.
CBS News, without any flowers in its hair, is in San Francisco because this city has gained the reputation of being the hippie capital of the world.
And the center of that capital was a neighborhood known as Haight-Ashbury.
Already, in its short life, the hippie generation has been examined far more than the beat or lost generations ever were. So much so that now Haight-Ashbury and hip are almost synonymous. Why Haight-Ashbury? Why this community?
San Francisco as a city has a history of permissiveness, and Haight-Ashbury within that city has a particularly high level of permissiveness in the last few years. We, like people, our bylaws and our council say, let's defend the individual.
It seems to be a mecca for runaway juveniles. We ask them why they're coming here, and they say, well, this is where the action is.
So what was a quiet residential and shopping center has become a milling turmoil of seekers. Many of them are seeking a new sensation, and that is the drug lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD, possession of which has been declared illegal in California, but which is easily accessible here.
The music is acid rock. Acid, in the vocabulary of the young, is short for LSD. The drug, according to the people who swallow it, expands their consciousness, stimulates their nervous system, and intensifies their sensual experiences. Far more popular than LSD and a lot less potent is marijuana.
I think that the psychedelic exploration, which is an attempt to drop in to find out who you are and what you want to do, only one avenue, only one road is the drugs, and it is the easiest and it's the quickest, it's a catalyst, and that's why maybe more people use it.
Drugs played their part in the new code of sexuality that hippies and others were practicing. Suddenly it was okay to have more than one sexual partner in a lifetime, and sex without benefit of clergy.
The biggest problem of America is sex, the sex hang-up, the repression of sex, and we've got to get that out of the way and let it flower however it wants to flower.
I never think about it. I mean, it's just spontaneous.
The potent concoction of drugs, sex, and music didn't take long to sweep the country. The media dubbed the summer of 1967 the Summer of Love. The summer chronicled by another hippie phenomenon, the underground press.
These underground newspapers are the official voice of the hippie movement.
Free press! Mr. Free Press! Paper train your dog! Anything!
Like their readers, the papers are unconventional, flamboyant, and highly controversial. The most numerous are the psychedelic weeklies, devoid of news, politics, and most everything else that the orthodox press sees fit to print. Instead, they devote their space to psychedelic art and page after page of erotic poetry and photo montages.
It was apparent almost from the beginning that the weird dress and ornamentation of the movement appealed to a much larger group of young people than just hippies. But what caught on most was long hair.
Well, girls flip out over my hair.
They do?
Yes, sir. I feel that it's my right as an individual to wear my hair in any way I want. So I wear it, and the more people whistle and holler, the longer it'll get.
I'm absolutely amazed at how upset people are about long hair. And this is like the last 100 years is the first time in human history that people have cut their hair short. You know, previous to that, it was considered very attractive. You know, I personally consider it now.
As long-haired flower children danced barefoot in the streets, their parents were either up in arms or mystified by what they saw, often both.
They say you can't tell the girls from the boys. They complain about the footgear of the young, when they wear it and when they don't. They are appalled by the irregular use of the institution of the bag. They say the kids look dirty even when they're not.
It's nauseating. It's disgusting. I think grooming and cleanliness, taking care of oneself, I mean, this is important, I mean, in everyday life.
Well, of course, I dislike long hair, and I dislike seeing boys go out on dates without being dressed up or without a girl wearing a dress, but we used to put on the very best thing we had each day when we went to school.
In their deeds and their long hair, the hippies believed they were on the way to a new understanding, a new consensus. Another name the hippies have adopted for themselves is the love generation. They like to feel an expanded, communal sort of love. They enjoy a sense of being part of a group, united by general affection for each other, a group where people serve and support each other. Every afternoon at 4, hungry hippies begin to congregate in the Panhandle, an offshoot of Golden Gate Park. They are waiting for the arrival of the Diggers, a hippie subgroup who show up at this time with a station wagon full of food, which is given free to anyone who wants it.
Diggers are not to be undersold.
The Diggers get this food in handouts from stores or restaurants or the wholesale markets. This feeding typifies the hippie ideal of standing apart from society by means of mutual help and love. By the end of that summer of 67, all kinds of folks were trying to cash in on the hippie phenomenon. That was just what the hippies didn't want.
The elders of San Francisco's hippie colony gathered at dawn in solemn assembly, an exorcism of chants and meditations, all with a single purpose, to rid their movement and their neighborhood of evil commercialism. Hippie elder Jay Thalen believes the word hippie is at the root of the problem.
What we're saying, there's a closer definition of what we are is free people, free Americans. As free Americans, we believe all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Free people, this more is a closer definition to what the phenomena is.
In a final gesture, a coffin representing the dead hippie name is borne through the streets.
In fact, the mock funeral signaled the end of a lot more than just the death of a name. For many hippies, life in the big cities was becoming increasingly oppressive. That utopia they were seeking had often turned out to be utterly unlike what they thought they were after. So, many of them decided to flee the cities and to go back to nature. That story when we return.
World number
Running away from home to join the free spirits in the hippie movement seemed the perfect answer. For some, it was their first taste of drugs, sex, and independence.
They sleep when and where they can, in the parks or in communal crash pads. When their money is gone, they often turn to panhandling to find food. The runaways come here for a variety of reasons, and in too many cases have no intention of going home.
But from the beginning, there were problems. Ecstasy and mystical awareness may have been the motive for doing drugs, particularly LSD, but it was far from the only result.
Night is the worst time for freakouts, for the terror of a bad trip on drugs.
Going too fast, man. I must slow it down. How about if you put your signature right there so we can be authorized to give you medical treatment? Let us say Okay. Sit a while, and when we're ready for you, we'll give you a call. Okay. Okay? Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you. Very good.
And the new sexuality brought with it sexually transmitted disease.
There you go. Also, no sex for a week. Okay.
The young man needs those pills, not for a trip, not to freak out, but because he has been exposed to gonorrhea. The private free clinic in Los Angeles treats a variety of diseases, but it estimates that nearly a fourth of its patients are treated for gonorrhea or syphilis.
Disease wasn't the only problem. Hippies were drawn to neighborhoods that were cheap, and the neighborhoods, Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco and the East Village in New York, were cheap because they were dangerous. White middle-class teenagers became easy prey. Lately, a hoodlum element has invaded the East Village. To them, the hippies are fair game.
It's not safe for a chick to walk down the streets. I was talking to one of my girlfriends yesterday, and she was telling me she got raped. And that's just not the thing down here. It's not safe to walk down the streets anymore.
Well, I met her here down in the village about 2 months ago, and she explained the troubles to me. Most of her troubles seem to be that she's just a mixed-up kid looking for some companionship. And she confided in me and a few other kids, and everybody liked her that she met, and nobody disliked her. And I don't see any reason for what happened the other night, her getting killed with Groovy. I mean, there was no reason for it.
What happened the other night was murder. The girl they were talking about, 18-year-old Linda Ray Fitzpatrick, died here in a filthy cellar, bludgeoned to death along with a hippie known as Groovy. Linda is not the first hippie girl to die like this. What focused national attention on her murder is the background from which she came. She had lived in this 30-room mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut. Her father, a wealthy businessman. Close friends of the family said Linda was a happy, artistic girl, though possibly not prepared to cope with life in the East Village.
Well, she was very young, probably, for her age that way.
What happened to Linda was by no means an isolated case. More and more hippies were becoming disillusioned with life in the noisy, dirty, crime-ridden city. At first, just a few moved out, looking for peace and tranquility in retreats like the wilds of Colorado.
If anybody has been wondering where all the hippies have gone lately, well, we found them here on Bald Mountain, 8,000 feet up in the Colorado Rockies, waiting for the last day of judgment.
Drop City is being built out of old cars found abandoned on the highways or bought at junkyards. They are chopped apart with axes. Hippies, paradoxically, liken this experience to Abe Lincoln's rail splitting in Illinois. Each car makes a steel panel for the dome, strong enough to withstand the cold wind and snow of the winter in the Rockies, and ingenious enough to have received the critical acclaim of architects.
Hippies frequently banded together to search for the perfect place to live.
There are almost 300 in this caravan, traveling in 54 buses. The youngest is less than a week old, one of 11 babies born on the trip, the oldest in his 50s. They've traveled more than 15,000 miles, bringing what they call the message of truth and love to people across the country. And now they're going home, at least to what will be their new home, a farm in Tennessee. The trip started in San Francisco.
We pulled into Ripley, New York a few months ago to have a baby. And at first, the people didn't know what this was, an invasion of long hairs they'd never seen before. 200, coming in the supermarkets and gas stations in the whole town. By the time we left the next morning, everyone was out on their front porches waving us goodbye. And the local minister, Presbyterian minister, opened up his church for the night, let us use the restrooms where we could keep warm. And people invited us into their homes, and they rang the church bell for us when the baby was born.
The long trip from the West Coast is over, but now the farmland they had hoped to purchase is not available. So the buses will make a temporary home near Nashville at a federal recreation area. From there, the search will begin for more farmland. The leaders say they'll find the land through vibrations. When the vibes get good, that's where they'll stay.
A couple of years ago, advance parties from the hippie movement appeared in Taos Valley, looked around and sent back the word. This is the place. You get great vibrations from the mountains, the valley, and the Indians, they said, and the movement was on. Some hippies made the scene for a time, then split, but others stayed behind and formed dozens of communes out in the country, where they're trying to farm during the area's 2-month growing season.
To many hippies, disillusioned with life in the big cities, rural communes seemed the perfect answer to what they were seeking.
That's the tale of an abandoned guided missile. That's an empty propane gas container. And this is a commune in Taos, New Mexico that's looking for a new technology. The domed building was erected by the members of the commune, most of whom have tried drugs and given them up, tried the civil rights movement and given it up, tried Judeo-Christianity and given it up for the religions of the East. They eat no meat, and except for personal clothing and toilet articles, they own nothing as individuals. Except for variations in the diet, this experiment is as old as America. The last great surge of communal living took place in the 19th century, but it died out in a few years. One of the women each day takes care of everybody's children. Family life for those who are married is respected. When we asked one of the women, "What's it all for? Why do you give up material things?" she answered, "To get back to basic things."
I want to get an egg.
Wow.
Get an egg.
What I'm interested in is in really living out what we started out to do when we signed that Declaration of Independence right back there in the beginning. This is not a world-shattering event. It's nothing. It's just a group of people who've decided to try and live out all those things that our forefathers believed in, very simply.
For a time, the communes captured the imagination of a whole host of characters, including one of the high priests of the drug culture, Harvard professor Timothy Leary.
Here, 5 miles up a rugged dirt road, Leary lives with some 20 adults and 10 children on a rundown ranch embellished with teepees that they've built.
We're here to stay as close to nature as possible and to stay as close to each other as possible and to our brothers and sisters here. We plant seeds. It's very important to plant seeds. And we live very close to the animals. We have our own milk cows. And we just try to love each other and live the righteous life here.
But as the hippies spread out through the countryside to live in communes, their influence greatly began to decline. There would be one last hurrah in August of 1969, at a festival called Woodstock.
Much of an entire county in the summer resort area of New York State's Catskill Mountains is virtually paralyzed this weekend by an overwhelming crowd of pop rock music fans from all over the country, creating crowd conditions of emergency proportions. At least 300,000 young people, perhaps as many as 500,000, have jammed the highways and country roads trying to get to a music festival featuring the most popular performers of rock and folk music. There is not enough room for them all. They began to arrive earlier in the week from as far away as California and New Mexico, attracted by a widely promoted music and art festival that promised 3 days of peace and music. So many people showed up it became impossible to control them, and the festival was declared free and open to everyone, complicating the crowd problem even more. They came expecting to enjoy themselves thoroughly.
What does this rock festival mean to you?
Some place where you can be totally free to do and be anything you want, and nobody's going to say anything or think anything about you. You're just accepted for what you are, totally.
The exhausted, embarrassed organizers of the event, guilty of undertaking such a gigantic spectacle, say they'll never do it again. Except, perhaps, if they could hold it in the Grand Canyon.
By the early 70s, it was clear that the hippie movement was dying out. Slowly but surely, the hippies were being reabsorbed into the cultural mainstream. Their hairstyles became middle class, their clothes were now sold off department store racks. The way of life they preached had gotten lost in a colorful hodgepodge of symbols and slogans and psychedelia. But for some, the demise of the hippie movement did not end their search for spiritual engagement. They turned instead to groups that preached something quite different from peace and love. In a moment, cults in America. In the aftershock of the hippie experience of the 60s, many young Americans continued their search for a world of peace and love, and they began to look for it in religion. That did not necessarily mean the traditional faiths, traditional denominations. Instead, they turned to new and different manifestations of faith, like the so-called Jesus freaks.
You know, you hit up on Jesus, man, and you're on a righteous peak, 24 hours a day.
Some of them spoke in tongues. Some conducted public baptisms in the Pacific Ocean, complete with celebrities like Pat Boone. And there were others, more vulnerable, their young minds open and trusting, who it turned out were ripe for the taking. They turned to fringe groups that sometimes were more sinister. Cults.
The experts say most who join cults are emotionally confused or distraught, and the promise of a utopian life fills the void.
People join because they see the vision, the idealism.
It's a very seductive temptation to be taken care of, to have a family, to have a direction, to know that you're right with God.
But instead, what they found in many cases were groups that worked to inspire a blind devotion to a charismatic leader.
Self-appointed gurus, self-appointed messiahs, seducing someone a step at a time to believe that they have a special mission, a special power, special knowledge.
They had my mind.
And once they had their minds, cult leaders were able to demand anything, from their money to their lives. The world was stunned when 913 followers of the Reverend Jim Jones meekly committed mass suicide on his command in the jungles of Guyana. A broad tradition of religious tolerance in America has provided fertile ground for different religions to flower. But the growth of cults in the late 20th century can be traced back to the 60s, to a time when America's young were questioning all of its institutions, including religious institutions.
We have become so institutionally bound that we have lost touch with the person.
with the individual in society.
As a result, the disenchanted began searching for something else. Many turned to Eastern philosophy, which focused on reaching inner peace, nirvana.
Transcendental meditation is that technique which deals with the problem of peace of the individual.
Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was the first Eastern religious figure to come to prominence in the West. At the height of the hippie era, he was made the most famous guru in the world by the Beatles and a number of other well-known followers like actress Mia Farrow, who made a trip with him to India.
Could you please tell us why you're going?
To be a better person.
She will be more practical and more successful and more peaceful and more harmonious.
Almost as soon as transcendental meditation became a worldwide phenomenon, some began to question its cult-like trappings. John Lennon grew so disaffected with the Maharishi that he denounced him as a fraud. Another Eastern movement, the Hare Krishnas, established a strong, visible presence in the U.S. during the 1970s. Their religion, a combination of Hinduism and Bhakti Yoga. The Krishnas became a familiar sight on city streets, in parks, and air terminals, where they gathered to dance and chant and proselytize. But at a West Virginia Krishna commune, once the largest in the U.S., disaffected followers charged the cult's leader, Swami Bhaktivad, with sexual molestation and fraud.
Government investigators accuse the Krishnas of fraud in their fundraising. They say the Krishnas used deception to satisfy Bhaktipad's appetite for hard cash. How are you making $400-500 a day?
A lot of ways. Well, like this flower here, say I give you the flower and tell you that I'm helping crippled children today.
So sometimes devotees appear a little deceptive, or they try to put a sugar coating on the act of getting people to give charity.
In 1991, Bhaktipada was convicted of fraudulently soliciting funds for his commune. He was excommunicated from the international Hare Krishna movement. But corruption and deceit were hardly limited to the Krishnas. In the early 70s, an Indian guru, Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, preaching open sex and the glory of capitalism, began to attract a large number of Western disciples to his home in Bombay.
You can look into my eyes and you can see it. Religion is a sort of intoxication.
Bhagwan has intoxicated some 300,000 disciples worldwide. Most are European or American, well-educated, middle-class adults. They have been told their surrender to Bhagwan must be total, so they have given up their belongings, their past, their names.
In 1981, he eluded charges of income tax evasion by fleeing to the United States. The Bhagwan, which means God, purchased a 64,000-acre ranch in Oregon for $6 million, and he named it Rajneeshpuram, meaning expression of Rajneesh. Despite bitter opposition by local residents, the Rajneeshs expanded their cult into a nearby town and renamed it the city of Rajneesh.
4 years ago, this was a cattle ranch. Now Rajneeshpuram is a $120 million city with its own courts, mayor, and police force, all serving Bhagwan.
And you will become very quiet. And the force...
And the iron hold that Rajneesh had on his flock showed no signs of weakening. Ma Anand Sheila, his personal secretary, business manager, and so-called Queen Mother of the Oregon Commune, was one of the Guru's most loyal allies.
Wherever Bhagwan is, it's a beautiful land, beautiful heaven.
But in 1985, Sheila decided she'd had enough. She ran off with, according to Rajneesh, $40 million that belonged to him. She later denied taking the money.
I left with less than $10 in my pocket.
You said also that the Bhagwan was really not the slightest bit interested in enlightenment, so it was a con.
Absolutely.
Anybody who cannot experience it, it will look like a con. I sell contentment. I sell enlightenment.
In November of 1985, Rajneesh pled guilty to 2 counts of violating U.S. immigration laws. He was forced to leave the country, and he returned to India, where he died of heart failure in 1990. Ma Anand Sheela returned to Oregon, where she pled guilty to charges of assault and attempting to murder the Bhagwan's personal doctor. At the end of 1985, the last Rajneesh commune in the U.S. was closed down. The ranch, the planes, and the Rolls Royces were sold off. Rajneesh was by no means the only cult leader to mix spiritual growth with the accumulation of wealth. From the time he was 16 years old, the Reverend Sun Myung Moon claimed that Jesus handpicked him to restore the kingdom of God on earth. So, Moon founded the Holy Spirit for the unification of world Christianity in Seoul, South Korea.
In 1972, the Reverend Sun Myung Moon wrote that God spoke to him in a prayer and told him to go to America to speak to the people.
God has sent me to America in the role of a doctor, in the role of a firefighter.
His rallies spread across America, where Moon's rhetoric attracted new recruits in surprising numbers, converts who bought every word of his as gospel.
He is the prophet who is opening up the door of perfection for man today.
What began as a cult grew into a religious phenomenon as thousands of young people, Moonies, left their homes to join the church, preaching on street corners, distributing literature, but most of all, collecting money.
By the mid-70s, Moon claimed 30,000 followers in the U.S., 3 million worldwide, many of whom worked for the some 150 businesses spawned by the church. In very short order, Moon had transformed his cult leader status into that of a major corporate power broker.
The man is a dangerous man, and I believe his intentions are to rule the universe.
Satan deceived God's children.
By 1977, federal authorities had begun to check into allegations that the Unification Church was being financed through Moon's various corporations. They found he had violated banking and currency laws, which led to an IRS probe. Moon was found guilty of filing false income tax returns and failing to pay back taxes. He served 12 months in prison. Upon his release in 1985, he decided to join forces with the political right. At the center of Moon's drive for political clout was his conservative newspaper, the Washington Times, and the international organization Causa, which, under the banner of anti-communism, gave hundreds of thousands of dollars to right-wing groups.
I think what's basically happening is the Unification Church is trying to buy its way into legitimacy.
But as far as many Americans were concerned, the most frightening aspect of Moon's empire was the powerful hold this industrialist-turned-messiah had on his flock.
I totally disregarded anything that I knew in the past and finally came to a point where whatever Moon said was truth. I was looking for this. I wanted to believe it. I wanted the Messiah to be here.
Moon's concept of world Christianity required the building of new families from within the church, leading him to prearranged marriages for thousands of Unification Church members. And Moon claimed that the children of these unions would be purebred Moonies, helping to carry the church forward. But his critics charged that Moon amassed legions of devoted followers by brainwashing and kidnapping.
Within one weekend, my mind was totally coerced into leaving home, into leaving my parents, into dropping out of school, into thinking that I was working for God.
Some families were desperate to get their children out of the clutches of Moon and other cults, and they turned to professionals called deprogrammers for help.
I did not agree to this. Barry, go!
Deprogrammer Rick Ross was the last hope to pull Aaron Perron away from the influence of a fundamentalist church called the Potter's House.
Watch and pray, amen. Nobody wants to listen to you. I'm your brother. I love you. I do listen to you. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. Listen to me. Just listen for 1 second. I watched you change. Oh yeah, the church. I did. The church. I watched you change. You may. I think what you're doing is you're just trying to get me out of that church.
I mean, are they about the Bible or are they just a bunch of guys who want to control people? I mean, that's the real issue.
I don't think that when you went into the church, you really knew what you were getting involved in.
He's still, as far as I'm concerned, still one of those people. He's physically removed from him right now, but I think psychologically, I think he's still bound.
24 hours into the deprogramming, a turning point.
What do you think, Aaron? You think that you can forgive your mom and that you can work things out?
It's getting pretty quiet in here. Welcome home, son.
If the raw battle to win back the heart and mind of a loved one is a frightening specter, then just imagine what took place behind the scenes in the tragedies that occurred at Jonestown and Waco, Texas. Cults that turn violent when the 20th century returns. To many Americans, cults are a puzzling but not necessarily threatening phenomenon. But that is not true when it comes to cults in their most extreme form, the violent Branch Davidians outside Waco, and the bizarre People's Temple in Jonestown. Indiana-born minister Jim Jones established the People's Temple Church in San Francisco in the mid-60s. In the 70s, reports began to surface that Jones was mishandling church funds and abusing his disciples. So he moved his flock to a secluded compound in the South American jungle, to the country of Guyana. When California Congressman Leo Ryan flew down to Jonestown in November of 1978 to investigate the cult, he and 4 other Americans were murdered by order of the Reverend Jim Jones. Jones then induced 913 men, women, and children to join him in a grotesque act of Holy Communion. They drank together from a cauldron of fruit punch, spiked with cyanide.
The bodies still lie where they fell during the apparent mass suicide and murder. The dead are now bloated and discolored, a jumble of corpses and bright clothing scattered around the assembly hall. An American pathologist who examined the bodies said it would have taken about 5 minutes for the potassium cyanide mixture to cause death, suggesting that those still waiting in line saw that people were actually dying.
To the survivors and family members of those who died, it seemed they were caught in a nightmare.
I've lost my mother, my dad, my sister, and my son is still missing.
You lose 27 people in one day. You'll never forget it. I never forget it. I think about my family every day.
But people did forget. They forgot how dangerous self-proclaimed power-mad messiahs can be. In 1990, allegations of child abuse and sex crimes began to surface in a religious fringe group in Texas called the Branch Davidians. 2 years later, the government learned that the cult was illegally stockpiling weapons. So on a cold, wet Sunday in February of 1993, federal agents attempted to enter the Branch Davidians' compound.
In Waco, Texas, 4 law enforcement agents are dead and at least 12 injured in a shootout with a religious cult. About 100 agents from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and local police officers surrounded a ranch occupied by about 75 members of the cult called the Branch Davidians. The agents were trying to serve a search warrant and they were hit by heavy fire as they approached.
They were waiting for us. It was simply an ambush.
The Branch Davidians had been tipped off. It turned out that the ATF may have known that the cult had been warned and that the assault order of February 28 should have been canceled, but it wasn't.
The heavily armed group claims to be an offshoot of the Seventh-day Adventist denomination and is led by a man named Vernon Howell who claims to be Christ.
An itinerant musician, Vernon Howell, had begun calling himself David Koresh, a name derived from the Bible, after winning a power struggle with other members of the Branch Davidians. Shortly after the February 28th attack, the FBI took charge of the case from the ATF, and thus began one of the longest standoffs in American history.
Through the tense days of waiting, cult members are taunting agents from the compound's gun tower. The standoff outside the Branch Davidian compound has become a psychological power struggle between federal agents and cult leader David Koresh.
The people in the compound are thoroughly committed to this endeavor, and they are willing to die for their leader.
So there'll be no excuses.
Just as they did when these pictures were taken before the siege began, disciples inside the temple listened for hours on end as Koresh quoted chapter and verse from Scripture, rambling on about the coming of Armageddon, asserting that he, as God, held the key to salvation and resurrection.
Well, you know what they think of me? They think I'm the Son of God. Do you believe he's the Son of God?
I hope he is.
As the drama unfolded, the public began to learn more about the Branch Davidians, to get some insight into the mind of David Koresh.
Koresh is a 33-year-old Texan, a high school dropout with a knack for reciting Bible verses.
He is a very charismatic individual. He's a good speaker. He knows how to do a heck of a tap dance through the Bible.
He inclined to me when you heard my cry. He brought me up out of a horrible...
Early on in the siege, Koresh began teasing the FBI with promises to end it.
I, David Koresh, agree upon the broadcasting of this tape to come out peacefully.
But following that broadcast, Koresh instead released 16 children and 2 women from the compound.
Koresh refused to honor his promise and has indicated he will keep his promise to come out when he receives further instructions from God.
As the days stretched into weeks, the FBI tried psychological warfare, hoping that a barrage of bright lights and music would hasten Koresh's surrender. The effort proved futile, but Koresh did make one more concession.
I love David Koresh.
On day 22, more adults leave, but they are the last. In all, 31 cult members are released. There's no more progress.
On April 19, 1993, after 51 days of stalemate, federal agents got the authorization they needed to move with force against Koresh and his followers.
5:50 a.m., just before daybreak, negotiators call the compound to warn cult members to either come out or be gassed. As the sun comes up, it is indeed the beginning of the end. The specially equipped Abrams tanks, borrowed from the Army, maneuver into positions around the compound, and as they ram the structure, jets of tear gas are fired inside the buildings. And, agents say, each time their tanks strike, with each blast of the gas, they are met with gunfire from cult members inside.
8 a.m., another tank, this one, with a large battering ram, rips into the second story of the compound, again under volleys of gunfire. 12 noon, some 6 hours into the onslaught, with tear gassing continuing and no sign of surrender from the cult members inside, flames erupt from an upstairs window and quickly begin to spread through the compound.
High winds whip the fire through the frail wooden structures, sending them up in flames like a tinderbox. One cult member leaps from the roof. Another comes out with his hands up.
The FBI claimed that shooting continued from the building even after it was set afire, so they prohibited fire trucks from trying to put out the flames. It was 12:38, more than a half hour after the flames were first spotted, when firemen finally arrived on the scene, but by then, it was too late.
They are not sure at all about what has gone on in terms of the death and devastation inside, but the word that we are hearing here in Washington was that there was no incendiary device set off by the FBI, that this was in fact a fire that was deliberately set by cult members.
The FBI said the fire was part of a suicide pact that Koresh made with his followers that he said fulfilled his apocalyptic prophecy.
Unfortunately, they bunkered down the children the best we can tell, and they allowed those children to go up in flames with them.
Loss of life is officially said to be massive, with so far only 8 persons known to have survived.
On day 51, it was over. The entire compound was reduced to a heap of ash and rubble. David Koresh, 77 of his followers perished in the blaze, including 24 children, many believed to be 10 years old or younger. An astounded world wondered how so many could go to their death without resisting.
Since he is God, his children are God's children. He believes that they're going to be resurrected.
he prophesied that he would come down in power and glory from heaven and judge the world immediately after his death. He proved in the end that he was a fraud.
The sudden, fiery end of the siege on the outskirts of Waco was a tragedy waiting to happen. It left the world with a host of unanswered and unanswerable questions. The hippies blazed across the imagination of the young for a while like a shooting star. The phenomenon was spectacular and brief. But cults are different. In a country that cherishes freedom of religion, cults could flourish. In too many cases, though, the cult members' search for truth, for God, led to brainwashing and mind control of frightful proportions, even to a slave-like existence. Devotion to the guru became the reason for living, and in too many cases, in Jonestown and Waco and elsewhere, the reason for dying. I'm Mike Wallace, and this is the 20th century.